Welcome back. Stasa23 here, back again with some knife therapy. And before I get started, I'd like to say thank you to Zelric here on YouTube. And he goes by Zelric42 on Instagram. If you're not already following him, go check him out. He produces some very nice quality content and awesome pictures on Instagram. And he's also dabbled into the custom knife making world. He organized a pass around with this knife along with another wee knife to reviewers who are interested in reviewing this knife, and I appreciate it, Zell. So let's get started. The knife we have before you is the Wee Knives 712F. Probably gonna butcher this, but Balaenoptera. This knife goes for around $254 on Blade HQ, and let's jump into it. You got a total length on this guy of about 8.5 inches, so it's definitely not a small knife by any means. You got a blade length of around 3 9/16 inches, so nice size blade there. And you see it goes all the way back here to the sharpening choil. The handle on this guy is around 5 inches, so you definitely have a lot of grip room right here. And the thickness on this handle is a little bit over a 1/2 inch, so it is a little thick. So let's get into the blade. Let's start out. It's got this nice drop point blade with a swedge that runs almost the entire length of the blade. You have a distal taper going down, making that tip nice and precise for detailed piercing. You have this nice light stone wash, I'd call it, on the blade. And I like how it brings out the lines of the knife where the media was rubbing against that. That looks nice. And as I said before, you have this recurve in the blade. They execute the sharpening notch, I guess, fine, because the recurve, you can't really tell. And as you can see, there's really no billboarding at all, which I like the way they do that. They keep their logo right here, and can't miss it right here. But let's get back to the blade. It's sterile completely on this side, and all you have on this side is boasting the premium blade steel of Bowler M390. I like that steel a lot. It's awesome. It's one of your super steels. And let's go to the jimping up here. The jimping is moderate. It's not super sharp, but when you bear down on there, it grips onto that finger. You also have the wee signature 3 lines on both sides. So like I said, it's very clean, pretty much sterile. Let's go back into the handle scales. You got a titanium frame lock. You have the Wii logo covering the entire scales on both sides, which add a good bit of traction. Let's just say that. You definitely feel it in the hand. It's not uncomfortable, but it definitely aids in the grip. You have titanium hardware. You got blue anodized screws back here. You got, I think these are Torx T8 all throughout the entire knife, which I love to see because, you know, it's really nice to just use one driver and not have to swap out bits or use 2 different drivers. If you flip over here, you can see you got almost a full-length backspacer, pretty much full-length titanium backspacer. You have a black coating on the tie. I like how they added this lanyard post right here so you didn't have to clutter up the design with the hole in the blade. I think that's a nice touch. The ergos on this knife are excellent, especially in the hammer grip. Great. In the what is it called? Well, this grip right here, awesome. And the reverse grip is pretty good. I noticed that whenever I did a little carving on the wood like I always do, and I was able to bear down, put a lot of pressure behind my cuts, and no hot spots whatsoever in this grip. I did notice that it wasn't the best at carving on wood, which, I mean, you know, it's probably not That's not what it's really made for. But I did notice in cardboard slicing, it zipped through cardboard like a charm. You got this high flat grind on there, so you didn't have any, it didn't go up to a abrupt thick spot in the blade. Pretty much a complete high flat, full flat grind, because it goes into that swedge, so you're not increasing in thickness anymore. It's a gradual. Let's see. I touched on the scales. Let's flip to this side. You got nice titanium milled pocket clip. We does a great job on their milled titanium pocket clips. You can fit, I'll tell you, with the shorts I wear, it went in the shorts easily, and it definitely stayed in there without moving around. But I did notice I have some thicker shorts, and for some reason about right here it stopped in the pocket. Now they were a little thicker than average, so I don't see it being any trouble with normal like slacks or anything like that. Another thing that I like that they did on this side, as you can see, they did the lock bar cutout, or the relief cutout for the lock bar on the inside, which did not break up the lines whatsoever on this knife. I think that's very attractive, well thought out, and I like it a lot. When it comes to disengaging the lock bar, you can see they got a little milled spot right there with a little bit of texturing right there. Easy to disengage that lock bar, no problem whatsoever. You can see your stainless steel lock bar insert where you really can't see it, but it's in there. And you got your anodized blue titanium screw. And as you can see, you don't have the proprietary hardware. You got your regular Torx with a ring around it. And I'm glad that they didn't just take away. I like having somewhat of a decorative pivot, but I do like to be able to use my regular Torx drivers. So I think they did a good happy medium there. Let's see, did I touch everything on here? Everything, as you can see, you got a chamfer going around the entire knife, so it's really, that aids in the comfort of this knife. Also, when you're flipping the knife, you have a thumb pad, a index finger pad for when you're flipping it to land in right there. As you can see, they milled out a slot right there, so it's comfortable whenever you're flipping. Also, as you can see, the hook in the blade right there, that allows for it to wrap around that stop pin, so it distributes the force around the entire area right there, and you're not just hitting on one spot. So that helps aid in the strength, or at least that's what I'm told. The flipper tab is okay. The jimping on it is just fine. I do get traction on it. I don't find myself slipping off of it. And we'll talk about that more in a second. Let's get a few quick size comparisons out of the way. Let's see. First, we have your Benchmade large Ritter Griptilian. About, nothing's changed in the size. You can see it's a big knife, bigger than the Griptilian. Let's see what else I got near me. Spyderco Paramilitary 2. It's bigger than the Power 2 by just a little bit. Let's see. One that most people have had or touched, the Ontario Rat Model 1. And these two are very comparable in size, if not identical in size. The Rat might be a hair shorter in the blade. And this one, I think, is identical in size. The Kaiser SLT, designed by John Gray. Yeah, these two are almost identical. Handles are, the handle on the Wii is a little bit bigger, and the blade might be just a touch bigger, but very, very comparable in size. Alrighty, let's get a weight on this guy real quick. I will tell you, Wii does a great job. I don't know if I'll be able to show you. My lighting isn't going to be good enough, but you got to take my word on it. They have some very nice milled pockets in there to lighten up this knife as much as they possibly could without messing with the integrity. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. That black's really messing with my camera, but take my word, they did a lot of work on the inside milling it out. keeping it as light as they possibly could. So let's see what it comes in at. Right at, my scale's 3/10 off, so right at 4.95 ounces. Not bad at all for the size of this knife. So I touched on just about everything that I like. One more thing, it's running on ceramic bearing, ceramic detent, so that aids in the action. The action is okay. So let's talk about things that I'm not too fond of. And I'll tell you, I had high hopes for this knife, but there's just some things that just kind of really just bug me. I'm not a huge fan of the recurve. I'm okay with it, but I just don't like the way, you know, the hook right there. Whenever you sharpen that, it's gonna look kind of funny if you don't do it just right. So I could have done without that. And also, whenever they must hit this on a strop or something, a power strop. And as you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the lighting, but it pretty much polishes behind the edge and it takes away that stone wash, kind of making it look a little goofy, but that's just my thoughts. Another thing, while we're at the blade, I understand that those 3 lines are their signature, you know, for the Wii logo or whatever, but I think personally I would have rather just see them use those lines as jimping. Just looks kind of, I don't know, it breaks up the lines in the knife right there, but that's just a total nitpick. Doesn't bother you, it ain't a big deal. Me personally, I would have loved to see that line right here where that swedge ends. I would have loved to see that, the blade ground down to that. I think that would have been a very attractive, like there you go. I think it would have been a very attractive blade shape. But, you know, this one's rather organic looking. It does flow well with the lines. And this is something that really bummed me out about the knife. Okay, you have a small flipper tab, which is okay if your detent is dialed in right or, you know, a little bit stronger. But being that flipper tab is behind the pivot, you don't have a lot of momentum for that blade to swing around. So the action is, you must be intentional with the action. And, you know, I've handled a lot of Wii knives, and this one is just not close to the snappy action that I've had in previous models. Very underwhelming for me. You know, that's about, like, you know, with your normal flip, that's about what you get out of it. You know, if I'm really intentional, that's as fast as I can. That's a push button. But, you know, you light switch it where that jimping is. You just get a, you know, just a, I don't know what to call that, but just not that great. And it has intention. It sometimes fails to flip. That's probably my biggest complaint on this knife. Let's get into some more of the nitpicks. You know, I like the way they did this pop of color with the blue anodization. They did it here, and here. I just don't understand the choice of, you got the pivot on this side with that blue anode, and then you got this color. It just looks like they just slapped it on there. Last thought, last idea. You know, I don't know. Like I said, and they also have blue there. I just don't think that went with the overall theme of the knife. It's almost like a gray. It's not even the same color as this. I don't know. Y'all let me know. Does that bother you? You know, at $254, the nitpicks, you know, sometimes make or break whether I'm going to buy a knife or not. All right, let's see. One other thing that's a pretty big deal. You know, I'm not a huge fan of, you know, the Wii logo all over. It's kind of like the K texturing on the Kershaws. I think it just makes it look a little cheap. But it does add a good bit of grip. Do notice that the peaks right here where they stop the texturing, it is a little sharp. Nothing that, you know, you feel in hand. Like I said, the ergos are great on this knife. But one area that it really killed it for me is you got that harsh texture, and that pocket clip is sitting right down on that texture. And just a little bit of time I've been putting this in and out of my pockets, it's already started to shred my pockets. So definitely a pocket shredder. And as you can see, it sits, a good bit of the knife sits in the pocket, so it won't be sticking out that bad. But that's a huge deal for me. let's see. Let me see if I touched on everything. Let's see if I can wrap this up. Talked about the jimping. So it's all going to depend on whether, the things that I didn't like, if you don't like that, whether it's a make or break for you. They got so many awesome designs out there. For me, they really have to check all the boxes for me to pick up a knife, because I don't have to settle anymore, because the knife community has grown so big and we have so many companies out there producing awesome products. So you really, those little nitpicks and complaints are a reason why I won't buy this knife. And like I said, this was at Blade. This was one of my favorites that I had checked out. I only got to check it out for a little while, but I absolutely love this knife. The action, that kills it for me. The pocket shredder, that's another thing that kills it for me. And the ano is not a huge deal, because if I wanted to, I could, get it re-anodized or something like that. The recurve, like I said, that's not a huge deal. I think recurves have their place, and it's an attractive blade. Like I said, I could have done without this big swoop right here, just taking that off. It would have kind of had like the Sleesh buoy look, but we'll wrap it up there. Nothing, functionally, this knife it functions. It's not going to fail on you. You got quality blade steel. The action, it works. It's just not snappy action like on most of their knives. And let me know your experiences if you had this knife. Maybe it just might be the D10 on this one might be a little soft. So hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope that helped you out. Maybe decide whether you want to buy this knife or not. Thanks again, Zell. I really appreciate you doing this, taking out your time to set up these pass-arounds. Like I said, I have another one coming up shortly. And y'all stay tuned. Hope everybody's having an absolute wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.